As finals are approaching, many college students spend their time cramming last minute for their exams in hopes of getting better scores. Although they may study more, their lack of sleep can lead to other health risks that can affect their everyday lives. Therefore, we decided to research to what extent does sleep deprivation influence the way that we perceive our own skills. This topic matters because most college kids stay up late in order to ensure that they do well on their exams. However, studies have shown that no matter how much effort you put forth when doing an exam, it won't make up for the fact that you are sleep deprived.
They tested this by creating two groups and manipulating how much sleep they got, making one group stay up and another go back home to sleep. Following this, each person was instructed to take a test the next morning and rate the performance and mood. What was found was that those that are sleep deprived performed worse on the cognitive task, but reported higher levels of performance than those who were not.
Like the first study, the second one tests how lack of sleep affects people's perception of their action capabilities as opposed to their cognitive abilities. The difference between the findings in the study opposed to the first one that assessed cognitive performance was that those who were sleep deprived rated their performance on their abilities lower. The researchers found that it could not be determined whether this was due to a conservative estimate of their physical abilities or the lack of sleep that altered their cognitive functioning on rating those abilities. In this experiment, a confounding variable was each person's personal perception of their own abilities prior to any manipulation in the study that may have caused them to rate their performance better or worse.
The research done in these two studies led us to question what determines how a person perceives their own performance. The discrepancies between the results in the studies leaves a gap of whether or not sleep deprivation actually affects a person's perception of their performance.
Test the possibility of another confound in our own experiment by addressing the question of whether it is insufficient sleep or the amount of studying you do that affects the perception of your own performance.
If we test what people will perceive their outcome will be in 4 different scenarios, then the people who are sleep deprived because they were studying will have higher expectations regarding their test scores, because they have been studying more, so they will feel that they have put more effort into preparing for them.
We will randomly select 200 people from the ages of 18 through 24 through SONA. The participants will each be introduced to one of 4 situations. The amount of sleep and whether they study or not will vary between groups. However, at 6:15 a.m., they will all be given the same test. There will be a multiple choice reading comprehension test. After the test, each person will be asked to complete a survey ranking how much effort they put in while taking the test and how well they think they did. We will then grade the test and compare their actual results with their perceived results. Once we have randomly assigned the participants to one of the 4 groups, each participant will be put into an individual room inside the sleep lab so that we are able to monitor the amount of sleep that they receive. Every person will be asked to come to the lab and enter their room by 6 p.m. Then they will be allowed to do as they please until they feel tired and fall asleep. We will provide books, magazines, music, and other small activities to help them pass the time. Every participant will also have the option of having a light breakfast and a cup of coffee the next morning prior to taking the test. The first group will be able to do what they want in their room until they fall asleep and are allowed to sleep for the full 8 hours. After we have determined that they have gotten those 8 hours by monitoring them, they will be woken up and allowed to get ready and have a light breakfast or coffee if they'd like before giving the exam. At 8 p.m., the second group of participants will be introduced to a reading and set of multiple choice questions similar in structure and wording to the test they will be given the next morning. From 8 to 10 p.m., they will be allowed to study the material in order to prepare for the test that they will also be given. Again, participants will be allowed to go to sleep when they'd like and will be woken up after we have determined that they've slept for 8 hours. The third group will only be allowed to sleep for 4 hours after they have fallen asleep when they please and will not be given study materials. After they've been woken up, they will be given the same tests as the rest of the groups. At 8 p.m., the fourth group will be introduced to the same material that Group 2 received to study from. a reading with practice multiple choice questions, and will be allowed to study for 2 hours with the material as well. This group will only be allowed to sleep for 4 hours after they fall asleep, and also will be given the same test as the rest of the groups.
There will be a timed multiple choice reading comprehension test. After the test, each person will be asked to complete a survey ranking on a scale of 1 to 10 how well they think they did on the test. We will then grade the test and compare their actual results with their perceived results.
The strengths of our experiment are that we have 2 independent variables. Another strength is that our participants have been randomly selected and randomly assigned. Also, the experiment will take place in a sleep lab so we can monitor our patients. A limitation of our experiment is that the participants will only be sleep deprived for 1 night, so it may not really affect them.